Welcome back to Real Talk for an Unreal World. My guest in this episode is Anita Govender. She is a woman who has a method of healing like I have not experienced before. I offer tools and education within this podcast so that you can learn about yourself and how to heal from difficult experiences, or provide a language for uncomfortable feelings so that you can communicate about them and process them. But often we avoid uncomfortable feelings and experiences for so long that we store them within our subconscious and we end up forgetting about them. Anita guided me through a state of consciousness, through a state of awareness, and created a highly visual space for me to unlock doors that I had closed and built up boundaries around for quite some time from my past. And as an individual who does quite a bit of inner work, I was surprised to see what was stored inside of these boxes that I had buried deep within me. And I know that many of us do this. It's a very common practice. So in this episode, we talk about processing emotions and identifying emotions. We talk about navigating the journey of the subconscious, because this is where a lot of what we store is hidden. And it's important for us to understand how to get back to those places so we can heal them. And for me, all I care about in this life is for the evolution of mankind to alchemize this fear state that we hold ourselves in using love. And Anita offers such a wonderful method called Reconcile and Resolve, so you can be release and let go. And it is factual within its statement, because in this episode we talk about the journey that I went on and how you can associate that within your own lives to help you grow within yours. Thank you as always for showing up for these podcast episodes, and I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I did having it. Much love.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry about
How
that.
are you? No,
Yeah.
That's okay. I just went to grab my phone and be like, okay, just make sure.
I figured you were doing that right now. Nah, my friend just got some troubling news, and we were having a conversation about mindsets and discipline in one's life. He's well, it's the gentleman I live with actually. The couple, they're around 80 years old, and he just got told he was pre-diabetic. So he's evaluated his choices to spend more time on this planet, and we were just talking about a mindset and how to step into that, and he's made huge changes since I've been here. Like, he's changed his life in incredible ways, but this is just a base of a new mountain, right?
Wow. Yeah. It's not too far though, right? I mean, he can still get it under control.
I believe so. I think that we can do anything we like in this life.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that that's why we're talking about the mindset. It's like, if anyone puts limited beliefs on you, then those belief systems can become a reality. And I think that a lot of people ask me how I was able to achieve the things I achieved in my life. And it's like, well, that was the first thing, is I created a new belief system around who I was, and I put all that power into myself. And that's what I've seen is the power of a belief system, is that we can do anything.
100%. 100%. Yeah. So,
And more
um,
so, like when we look into to belief systems within ourselves, where like we look at worth and value and like frustration and anger. If we believe these things are who we are, this is why we practice them. That's why I think it's very cool with what you're doing, because you can navigate someone back to that belief system where they may have forgotten that belief system, and be able to see themselves for who they are in the present moment and what they thought of themselves in the past, and be able to heal that.
yes, exactly. Because that essence, that true self is always there, right? It's just been covered up by layers and layers of experience that has told us we're something or someone other than that true self. So
Right.
it's just a process of uncovering.
Exactly,
Yeah.
peeling back the layers. And that's the thing with life, is that we keep piling things on a root core issue of an ego that's been imbalanced. It's been taught, or we've taught it to believe certain things. And I love like these healing methods that people in the quantum field are doing, people like you with what is it, transcendent meditation, or what is the thing that you are doing? What do you call it? I wasn't sure what to call it.
I gave it a name, reconcile and resolve. So R&R. Um, because we are going into the moment of where the experience happened and we reconcile that moment, and in that is what creates the resolution. So you come out of that, with a different belief, feeling differently about yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Re that's I like
Reconcile and resolve.
reconcile and resolve. I like that. I personally found it fascinating when we did the one that we did together
Yes.
because, as a disciplined human who peels back layers in my everyday life, what the subconscious stores inside of us that needs to be healed is incredible when we start going on this journey within. Because I honestly, when you and I did this thing, I thought, this would be interesting to me. I never rule anything out, but I thought, I've done a couple quantum healing sessions where it's a similar formula, but it was different with you, and I actually I loved how easy that we went into this space of discovery within ourselves. That was incredible to me, how easy that unfolded. Because with quantum healing, Dolores Cannon's methods, there's a certain vibrational frequency that the guide is leading you in to put you in a state of consciousness. You didn't do any of that. You just did it being you. That was crazy.
Well, thank you for saying that. What I find fascinating as well is in just having a conversation with someone and um, trying to figure out from their perspective where it is that they want to go for the healing. And just in conversation, a memory would surface. And it surprises them. They're like, I don't even know where that came from because I didn't think about that in forever. So I'm surprised it even came up now. And then I know that that's my clue. That's where we need to go because it does. Things just come to the surface that need the attention and the healing in that moment.
Right, and I was thinking about it. I was like, I wonder if it's her energy. Like, is it her energy? Is it the space for the two of us to be vulnerable in the moment? Like maybe that allows the subconscious to kind of put down its barrier or the
Mm-hmm.
boundary that we create because it feels this frequency in this space that these two humans are in, and it just knows to allow like vulnerability to take place in a sense of safety and security to
Mm-hmm.
navigate into areas that we have built such large walls around that we do forget what that is. Because I analyzed what we were doing afterwards.
Right. Right.
Uh,
So, one of the things that I actually learned about myself over the years is that there is that element of safety and trust with me that when someone meets me, even a complete stranger, um, and they feel comfortable enough and safe enough to just open up. And I've had this happen to me many times, and I always wonder, like, that is so crazy. Like, how can this person tell me things that they don't even know me? Um, and like I said, over the years, that's what I've come to know because that's what people have said to me about just meeting me. They feel like they can trust me and they feel very safe. And so when I accepted that about myself, then I started noticing that happening more and more. So when I am with someone, I notice. So it's, yes, in some ways, it's because it's our energy that meets first, right?
right.
And so it's that, oh, okay, I can trust this person's safe. And then there's a relaxing into it. And then, of course, it's also your willingness to be open and vulnerable, to say, okay, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to really um, experience this to the fullest of my ability. So it's a bit of both.
Right, and I think it's important. A lot people put a lot of pressure and expectation when they're stepping into areas like this where these unconventional methods of healing are taking place. but that is the key element, is if you're sick and tired of being tired and sick, sorry, and you're, tired of the repetitive emotional cycle that you keep yourself in, then you let your guard down when you come into things like this, because you are looking to heal. You are looking to undo those blocks that, you've created such distance between your authentic self and that root core issue that began to damage your truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm curious. So when you analyzed your experience, what did you come up with?
Well, a lot came up. First, my first thought was, why are we not teaching this in school? Because the alleviation of an emotional experience that can take place in one's life from the past, and a process of peace and an ability to let go of something, is far beyond pharmaceutical drugs.
Mm-hmm,
Because healing has taken place so that wellness can blossom. And I
mm-hmm,
have felt that in every one of my sessions. Although each guide that has taken me into these sessions, like what you all do, has been unique in itself. But I
yes.
think that the value that has come through multiple sessions has allowed me to go deeper into the subconscious of past experiences and allow me to be someone new in the moment again. And even as I say that right now, I have goosebumps all over me, because I almost want to tear up, because it's so beautiful that you can let go of something and you can make peace with something that you really had no idea needed love, because that's essentially what we're doing. You're guiding us, or individuals that are doing this are guiding us to areas within ourselves that needs love and attention.
Yes. And that's all it is. It's like, pay attention to me. Um, and once you do that, it's just ready to release and let go. Um, I'm guessing also, as you found, with very little effort.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah.
The more I think about this, and I have thought about this quite a bit since you and I did the session a couple weeks ago, um, it was so, because I was so curious as to how we fell into this space of understanding within us. This is the first time I think you and I ever, well, I met you in the serving circle, the community on Facebook that we are both a part of. We reached out.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for podcast guests, and then we had decided that we would do this session together. So we really have no idea who each other are. But and I'm quite vulnerable in my life. People that listen to the podcast, they know this, but
Yes.
the levels of depth that we went into within my past and within my childhood, I wasn't vulnerable in these areas because I had built boundaries up around these that I had no idea had boundaries. I mean, and I'll explain to people what came up, like with my brother. My brother and I both traversed drug addiction, and my brother is still in drug addiction. And I felt a great responsibility of not being a big brother to him, because I didn't know how to be a big brother, and I was too concerned with my own journey that I was having difficulty understanding. So my brother kind of took, I was hard on him. I still love my brother and we did many great things, but that area where I could see the emotional damage that I had caused my brother, because in this highly visual space that you had created and led me within this state of consciousness that I was in, because essentially you're in a state of consciousness. It's almost like you're sleeping, but you're not,
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
totally cognitive. And then you are guiding us, creating this visual aspect of understanding of what we're looking for. And for me, I was able to see with my brother, that was just beyond anything, to see my younger version of my brother and him needing to be healed and to be seen and to be heard and just to be loved. And when, you guided us to all these spaces and I dipped him in the water, he came back a full grown man. I was like, oh my gosh, like he had been alchemized into his present self. Like maybe we healed him, I don't know.
Well, you needed to heal that part within yourself.
Right.
And I think I think in the process of you doing that with him at the forefront, in some ways it gave you permission to forgive yourself.
Right. Permission. This is a big one that
Yeah.
has been coming up for me in many areas. And I think that that is so important. And when we think about that, it's like, what you want me to give permission for myself to love someone or to be accountable for what I did in my life? Sure, okay, fine. I give myself permission. It's like we don't put enough thought into that because
Right.
the allowance of one to be able to feel what they may have transmitted to another, in terms of an emotional disturbance is a big deal to be able and allowed to feel that and to understand that within our life.
Well, I think it's kind of like um, we hold ourselves back from, so in other words, we give ourselves the permission to not do something, so to not forgive, because we don't feel that it is our right to do that for ourselves. But when someone else witnesses and hears and says, but it really is okay for you to forgive yourself. So you kind of got the permission from someone else, and now you can say, oh, okay, maybe I can do this for myself. And so that's why witnessing is so important, because we can stay stuck in whatever it is that we think and feel, because it could come from the level, I don't deserve to forgive myself. I hurt somebody. Caused someone else a tremendous amount of pain. I don't deserve that. But it's in the witnessing with somebody else, in hearing someone else say that they can see you for who you are. They can still accept you knowing what you've done. They can still accept you for who you are. And so maybe you can accept yourself now.
Right, that would make sense for like the visual aspect of it because it was like I was with my brother. Like
Mhm.
that was the most wild aspect about it. And you're right, he showed up in that form, but essentially it was myself allowing myself to look at what had transpired. So it was basically a reflection of myself, but it was
Yeah.
my brother because that's where the emotional disturbance took place. But still, it was me saying this is okay, and that actually brings a lot of context to it because when my brother came back a man, it was just an evolution of one energetic disturbance that had been evolved. So that makes a lot of sense. Geez, man, that this stuff is just I'm telling you, like this happened 3 weeks ago between us, and I think about
Yeah.
this all the time because it's just so profound. It's amazing to me.
Well, that's wonderful. And when you think back now to like your brother and the times that you were younger, the times when maybe you didn't, treat him in the way that you wanted to, how do you feel about that now?
There is a peace. There is a peace, and I've always like maintained an understanding like when I was able to come out of my drug addiction, I don't really talk about my brother too much on here, but I will for this because it's relevant. But my brother's still in active addiction and he's homeless and I felt a great responsibility of him being where he was, but I always knew it was my purpose. If I let him in, I can lead him out. You know what I mean? And this is why I've maintained my strength. I maintain my discipline because I actually have a cousin who is like a brother to me as well. The three of us grew up like brothers, and he's in active addiction and he's basically homeless as well. So, and I led like they these guys followed me, man. I was the one making decisions and doing this kind of thing, but we went into some dark places and then everybody practiced what they were doing on their own once we got older and took it to wherever they took it, which I
Hmm.
can appreciate. I've made peace with that. But to know now today, like I have more of strength with me today to be like, no, you just keep going, Justin. You know what I mean? And that also made me think of my cousin in the areas with him that I would need to heal. So these sessions, I know now doing this session with you, there's more in me,
Yes,
you know?
right. Yes, and having, but at a certain level, is there a certain level of peace that you were able to come to within yourself
Surrounding
regarding? the past. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It's a healing method. This is
Hmm.
absolutely, it integrates with you. And
Yes.
the integration process takes place within the session, but the integration process, it still stays with me, like over the weeks that we have not seen each other. So you're still so tuned in to that experience because it becomes a part of you. It's cognitive. It's no longer in your subconscious, it's in your conscious of
Hmm.
everything that's transpired. So that's incredible in itself. I mean, you're healing areas from your past that were stored in there, energetic moments that have been released due to an awareness of conscious understanding of processing.
So it's kind of like on two folds, right? So when you have an experience, um, there's an emotional impact to that, be it good or bad, right? But for the purposes of this, since we're talking about healing, we'll go with the negative. So there's a negative emotional impact that happens, and that's what causes a transformation within a person. Even though it's negative, it's still a transformation that took place because you went from one type of being to a different type of being based on that experience.
Right.
And so that is kind of on the cognitive level, and then you've got the energetic component to that, where the energy of this emotion is stored somewhere within your body or your field, right?
Right.
And it's always active. The thing with energy, it's not energy is not still. It's always in motion, it's always active. So it's trying to release either through the mind, but what happens, we don't want to think about those things. So we do everything we can to distract from thinking about it. That's why it's so hard for people to just be alone
Right.
without the TVs, without the phones, without any of the distractions, to just simply sit and be. Because the minute you do that, everything just starts coming up. Because first, that energy wants to release through the mind. And then when it cannot release through the mind, then it says, all right, well, let me try and release this way emotionally. And you start feeling emotions come up. Well, what do we do with our emotions? We stuff it.
Yeah.
We don't want to feel it. So that energy is always there. And then that's what causes the sensitivity, because that energy is within you. It's what causes that sensitivity. When someone says something to you, that hits that part of your being. That's when the upset happens. That's when you take it personally. That's when you get angry, or all sorts of things, right? There might be sheer shame, fear, guilt, whatever comes up. But then when we go back and we reconcile that part of us, we're releasing the energy of that experience in that moment. And because there's such an emotional feeling to releasing that, it causes the transformation again of who you want to be, because you've let it go. So that's why you feel it in the moment. That's why the transformation happens in the moment, because you feel the emotional impact of it now in a positive way.
Right, right. You transmute it. Absolutely. And
Correct.
when you were talking about distracting with our thoughts from our feelings, I mean, this was the result of me and many others creating addictions, is
Mm-hmm.
because these substances or food or shopping or whatever it may be external from us helps us feel anything other than those uncomfortable feelings that we are trying to avoid. And this is why we practice it. But with what you're doing and with other healers within these methods, they're allowing us to overcome our distractions by
Mm-hmm.
facing the core root issue of what took place. And you don't do that alone because there's a guide with you. You know, you've essentially created that space to be able to alchemize that energy because that's what we're doing. And I think that talking about difficult experiences, I mean, if I didn't go through all of these difficult experiences, I would never be able to understand the joy that I'm in today and the peace because I can often look back at my difficulties, but I'm grateful for them today. I mean, I offer them gratitude. I'm grateful for my addiction. I'm actually even grateful for losing my kids because hadn't have I lost them, I would have maintained that identity that I had created that was not beneficial and was not of love because I didn't understand self love. And what you're doing is teaching an aspect of self love through guidance.
Yes, that's really at the basis of what all of this is about, because it's coming back to yourself. And when you can love yourself, when you can forgive yourself, that's that is such an empowering aspect to all of this, because that's where the empowerment comes. Because it's not about trying to manage or get over or deal with something. You've already done it, and
Yeah.
so you can feel who you are, and then that's just automatically empowering. And in that is a freedom, because you can let go of that. You can let go of that part of the experience, and there's a freedom in that. So it's not about managing. That's one of the things I like to stress too, is that where when we go through this process and when we go through deep healings like this, um, we take away the striving, the efforting, the white knuckling through each day to get through it, because we're trying to not let the experience get the better of us. When we go through the deep healing, we can actually just put that to rest. But it doesn't, really stop after like the first series or something like that. I like to look at it, it's not a linear journey. I like to look at it as a spiral. And so we go through the spiral and we heal a certain aspect of that experience. And one experience can have many different limiting or self-defeating beliefs attached to it. And so we heal a certain aspect, and we might heal some beliefs that are associated with it. And then as we go up the spiral again, and that experience surfaces in a different way, but there are other beliefs that maybe you weren't aware of at the time of the first healing that have now shown itself, like, oh, well, I need to heal that part of it. And so that healing journey is a progressive journey. And even if somebody feels like they've fallen from where they were, it's kind of like a video game. Every time you clear a level and you move up, when you die at a certain level, you don't go all the way back to the starting point. You go just to the next level below that.
Right.
And that's kind of how it is. But then you
Right.
do more healing and then you go up again.
And essentially, if we look at each healing as a lesson, then the
Yes.
lessons are like the levels. And when you're able to pull the education or the lesson from the difficult experience, you see how it happened for you and not to you. Because the blame and victim mentality that we practice is something that society has dictated as being normal, which is why many of us are storing these experiences and we're not sure how to level up because blame and victim mentality doesn't allow you.
Yes, exactly. And so we just keep doing all we're doing is coping. And and that's what I kind of want to help people understand, that we don't have to cope with things, you
Yeah.
know, because coping takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. If you've got it on a certain day, great, you can cope with whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But if there's a day where you are just spent, coping becomes like this enormous task. And we want to move away from coping. When we heal, we don't have to cope, we move on. We're equipped with the ability to deal with whatever presents itself next.
Right. Coping doesn't become normal practice of
No,
life. That's
no.
just an observation. When you begin to cope again after you've stepped out of it, you'll be able to observe it and go, "Oh, wow, these old patterns, these old belief systems, these old behaviors." It's almost like you crack that. And for many people, they're looking for a way to step out of that emotional repetitive cycle. That's why I encourage people to experience these methods of healing that are unconventional and they're not covered by insurance and whatever else it may
No.
be. But there's a reason for that. It's because they offer wellness. They alleviate you from medication. They alleviate you from depression, from fear, from anxiety, from stress, because those are all practiced emotions of behaviors that we create because of patterns. So this method that you're doing allows an individual to create a new pattern based on a new belief system.
Well, and the thing that I find that I really love about working this way, within a program, a 4 week program, is when we get to the week where we're understanding what are those limiting beliefs that actually drive you. And people don't really think about what their limiting beliefs are, right? I mean, when do we sit down and say, well, what is it that I believe about things? And even when we, if we do try, it's very hard to actually get to all that we think we believe, right? Because I have people tell me, no, that's not really true. I don't resonate with that. And then I will relate to them a story they've told me and show them how they actually do have that belief. And then, oh, yeah, you're right. Yep. Okay. That's true for me. But for the most part, they, because they're so open now, they choose the beliefs that don't serve them.
Hmm.
And then when we go through more of the healing, when they come back to rewrite those, they look at it like, I don't resonate with that anymore. That is so not me anymore. Because the healing took place at a certain level, that they can drop these beliefs again without effort, without trying, without mental rehearsing over and over. They can just drop that and like, yep, no, and move to not complete and total wholeness, which is the other end of the spectrum, but move to the next stage of their belief that can be supportive. So they move out of the negative to the next best feeling state. And as I've said to them, the more healing they do along the way, those beliefs then get upgraded as they go. The stronger they get, the more they can say, oh, wow, okay. Because we don't just go from being hurt and believing something that doesn't work for us to suddenly, oh, I'm healed. I feel great. I'm like on top of the mountain.
Right.
That's a huge jump. It
Right.
is incremental because our experiences didn't just happen overnight. It took years to get to where we are.
Absolutely. And I think that you're right. That's very important to talk about. Because what this does, though, with you is it allows you to be vulnerable in spaces where you were too afraid to go to. So
Yes.
after doing a session with you, you're now not as afraid to explore areas that you've avoided for quite some time. So peeling back layers becomes something you can do on your own. The deeper subconscious stuff, for sure, we absolutely need guidance to, and other people might need more guidance just to peel back some layers due to their experiences being so traumatic to that individual that
Mm-hmm.
they'll need guidance along that path. But certainly with what you're doing is you're essentially teaching them how to go into spaces and be there with themselves, because you're the guide. Like, you're just the guide that is really allowing us to heal ourselves.
Exactly. That is exactly correct. Yes. Being able to be with yourself in a space that was so scary and frightening,
Yeah.
um, that people don't want to walk through that pain. It's like, no, I don't, but knowing that someone else is there holding their hand, walking with them, gives them some sort of comfort to know, okay, I am safe, I'm held here.
Right.
And that allows them to be vulnerable in that space. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that was not easy, but it was so needed. And then the next time it's like, yeah, I'm ready to do this. And that aspect of it, like walking through that, um a lot of people have found that that was their best part of the whole thing, is going into those spaces which they've spent their whole lives avoiding.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how we can build these walls up surrounding difficult, uncomfortable experiences that, rewarded us with very uncomfortable emotions. Like, it's incredible the boxes that we can build within ourselves and put stuff in. I mean, you just become so removed from it because life is so busy and our mind is so chaotic, and talking about how we feel or difficult experiences is not something that is a common practice anywhere in the world, because I'm in this field of conversation, communication, or surrounding feelings with people all around the world, and it's just not a common practice. So I can easily see how we can become disconnected from these areas that we hide from. um, One of the things that I wanted to share was resulting an emotion being a teacher for me with jealousy, say. So, because people are afraid of their emotions. And I want to just kind of share how an emotion became a teacher for me. And what that looked like was if I was jealous surrounding a situation, rather than fall into that energetic repetitive cycle of self-sabotage, I looked at jealousy for what it was and I was like, okay, well, what the heck? Like why am I jealous surrounding this ridiculous situation that should have no power over me? But rather than it take my power away, what is it trying to teach me? And I
Mm-hmm.
was able to follow jealousy back to self-worth, to a first relationship that I had where, there was a situation that happened that debilitated my self-worth and my value because I didn't understand my worth and my value. I let another individual dictate that to me because I didn't have the tools and the education, as many of us do not. But that was
Mm-hmm.
a belief system that I had resulted around an experience from way before that had no value in the present moment. But because I explored that emotion of jealousy and I was able to follow it back to that time, I was able to look at that belief system and how it was created. And I was able to appreciate it and go, yeah, okay, wow. At that time, sure, that girl, she didn't understand herself and I didn't understand myself. So I gave my power away in that situation. But I let it go because I was able to say, today I understand self-worth and value and I'm able to protect my energy. So my belief system changed based on the understanding of where that belief system had been created. No more jealousy.
So beautiful. How often did you think about that experience during the course of your life after it happened? How often were you thinking about it? The
Uh,
initial
never,
experience.
never.
And yet it was impacting you in your current life.
Absolutely.
All the choices you were making were coming in some way, whether you realized it or not, from that space.
Yes,
So you never thought about it, but it was running your life.
that's correct. And that's why, that is the power of a belief system. So,
Yes,
it can shape our behaviors and our patterns, and we may not
it
even
does.
know where it comes from because we're too afraid to understand our emotions as teachers. And that's was a huge shift for me was when I realized that communicating about our emotions was not something that was widely practiced. I decided to make a change. And I was like, you know what? That hasn't served any of my family members or anybody that I meet. So I've got to do something different in my life. And I decided to talk about how I was feeling. But that was an external practice. But then the internal was becoming very aware of what my emotions were trying to teach me, even anger and frustration.
Mhm.
If something caused me to be frustrated, I would, say my wife's eating a bag of chips in the car beside me, and the friggin' chip sound is driving me nuts. But wait a minute. I have two choices now. I can follow that emotional repetitive cycle and use the energy to embellish frustration to the point of anger, which is going to
Mhm.
make me say, can you please throw that bag of chips in the garbage right now because I can't handle it? But that's a reactive state for me to say, whoa, what can't you handle? Why are you in this situation? Oh, because you're frustrated that the internet has been not functioning correctly for the last 2 weeks? Wait a minute, Justin. Be accountable for where the areas of energy are coming from within you because they're trying to teach you about yourself. And then you're able to look at the internet and go, the internet's completely out of my control. Why is this thing have an emotional frustration over my being? It's imbalancing me. And that has just been the most remarkable thing that's happened to me.
You didn't let the emotion take control of you. So you still very much stayed in control, which is what we should be doing. But but I know you've experienced this as a have I more times than we can count. When we do not have that awareness, the emotion is so overwhelming that we are so identified with the emotion
Right.
that we believe that it is us.
Right.
I am angry and frustrated, not I feel angry and frustrated. It's I am angry and frustrated. There's a very big distinction there. And so that emotion, we feel it as who we are, and it's not. we are separate from the emotion, but we need that awareness to understand that. And so that was why you were able to create that separation and be like, hold on, okay, I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? It's not who I am.
Right. And it
Yes.
was that was a really great way of putting that. We, our emotions are not our identity. And that's
No.
when I started to look at it as a teacher, it allowed me to take a look at the experiences. And what I was thinking a lot was, think of parents with young children, with all of the weight of the world on their shoulders, and men not talking about how they feel. Fathers can become very reactive when the children are, just being children, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
react with anger and frustration in this moment. And we don't think about the effects that that has on our children. But it's because of the weight that we carry within our lives that we begin to affect others with our energy. So we begin to teach them that it's okay to be reactive, because that is a way for you to express your feelings. And it's like, when we look at it from that standpoint, this is why parenting is the most important job in the world, and self-evaluation is something that we must practice. But I think when we have that within our thought process, to be like, wow, okay, like my emotional instability or my inability to communicate about my emotions is teaching my children the same patterns. And I learned that in my life as well, but I made a choice to end that generational trauma, because that's what it is. It is trauma,
Mm-hmm.
unprocessed emotions, or
Mm-hmm.
emotional experiences that cannot be controlled due to an inability to become aware about it. That is a traumatic experience that begins to store that energy in the body, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. And even our thoughts, the same thing with our thoughts. We are not what we think, because you can change your thoughts at any given moment. But because we have a thought and we are so identified with the thought, again, we think that's who we are. It's not. You can have one thought and you can decide in the very next second, I don't like that. I want to change that. And you can change your thought.
Yeah.
But it's having the awareness, because awareness is, without the awareness, there's no forward motion. You got to have the awareness, and that creates the separation. And that's where all of the transformations and the healings can take place, because there's that separation from the thought, from the emotion. Then the understanding follows, as well as the acceptance of it,
Yeah.
and then we can go into the healing of it
Yeah.
when we understand that we're not our thoughts and our emotions. And one of the other things that I think it's really important for people to understand as well, we feel that, like you've told your story, it's like we feel like we have to have had these really bad or traumatic childhoods to have the experiences that we have, to need healing. And that is not the case at all. Like, it is so far from the truth, because every experience that we have, even, and I would be the first to say this, is that even though we may have grown up in a home that is loving, that is supportive, where we felt cared for, our needs were met, even within those environments, we have had experiences that have taught us something different than who we really are, that has created a belief system that doesn't serve us in the way that it needs. And even though we were loved, we may not have been loved in the way that we as an individual needed.
Right. And I think a great reference, or an association to that understanding that you're speaking of, is children being seen and not heard, which was very
Mm.
common for your generation, and
Yeah.
very common in this in this day and age as well. So when a
Mm-hmm.
child is to be seen and not to be heard, that causes them to lose the ability to speak their truth. And that truth is the most important aspect to a human, because this is where our love comes from, is through our truth and our authenticity. That is the most common emotional trauma that we have on the planet, is an inability to speak one's truth. And you're right. I'm super happy you brought that up because a lot of people think of trauma as being physical or sexual abuse, but it isn't. It is, absolutely. Sorry, it is.
It's part of
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not
part of
the
it.
only one. Yes.
Exactly. Like because we overlook it because of the visual aspects that we can identify within physical and sexual abuse. But those are the experiences: neglect, abandonment, not being seen, not being heard. These carry the same density within the emotional energy not being able to be processed and stored within the vessel that physical and sexual abuse carry. Because it's
Mhm.
whatever is traumatic to the human that creates enough energy within an emotional disturbance and they store that within the body. So, but humans love to compare themselves with other people because it validates an experience when in the reality is an emotion no matter how the experience dictates it.
Exactly. The experiences are vastly different, but the fundamental emotions are the same.
Yes, exactly. And
Yes.
one of the things I was going to bring up regarding awareness, because a lot of people struggle with this one, and they're like, I think that you outlined that very well. One of the practices that I had in my life was accountability. So you're right, we go on autopilot within our thinking and we just become reactive because we allow the emotions to be our identity and they serve a function as to who we are. But if we have accountability within our life, that we display an emotional reaction or we cause harm to our children or to others or to ourselves, we can be accountable for displaying that emotion. And then that's where an awareness can come in because you begin to teach yourself, like, what am I becoming accountable for? Like, you want me to be accountable for, screaming at my best friend, for sleeping with my boyfriend? It's like, even if an emotional experience is difficult to teach you about an emotion, yes, you can still become accountable because you can become aware of yourself. And that's everything that we're trying to do is just become aware of ourselves.
Yes. And when we take on that radical responsibility for who we are, or the accountability as you speak of, when we do that, then we have to look at ourselves. We have to. There's no choice.
Yeah.
But as long as I hold the thought that, well, Justin, I'm pissed off because you did this. So if you didn't do this, I wouldn't be pissed off. But then why would I need to look at myself when
Right.
I've put the blame on you?
Right.
But if I had to look at, okay, I'm the one that got angry, I'm the one that's feeling these emotions, and I look at where that came from me, I can understand why your action then triggered that.
Yeah.
But I have to be willing to look at myself.
Yeah.
I have to be willing to take the responsibility for my feelings.
Yeah. And
Because if I didn't have a trigger around something and you did the exact same action, it would have no effect on me. It
right.
wouldn't bother me.
Right. And that emotional understanding of balance within ourselves, like if we can see ourselves in every experience, regardless of how anyone else tries to trigger us or cause
Mhm.
us to be reactive or whatever they're doing, if you can see yourself in the situation, it is the most powerful tool because you now have built a relationship with your emotional field to be like, look, am I going to give this individual or this experience my power right now? Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're emitting an immense frequency of vibrations that's going to have you be depleted after it takes place, or you'll practice it within your thought process and you'll be reliving this experience from the past over and over and over again. But if you catch yourself in the moment and say, okay, who am I in this moment? Okay, this person's, making a scene. Who am I? Am I going to go with this or am I just going to walk away? Because if I just walk
Mhm.
away, I'm going to teach myself something and I'm going to learn about myself.
I have actually an experience that I had, which really taught me this and really brought what we're talking about home for me. It was some years ago, and I recall I was doing the dishes, and my husband was he was watching a game on TV, and we were talking about something. I honestly do not remember the subject, the context, or any of it because it it just vanished. But here's what happened. He said something to me, and I could feel in that moment. I could feel the anger rising within me, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I'd been doing my work by then, but at this point I stopped and I thought, whoa, okay, I'm really angry here. But why am I so angry? And I said, okay, what did he say? What were the words that he said? And I repeated them to myself. I said, he said this. Okay, what did you take that to mean? And I said, oh, I took that to mean that I'm not good enough. And I said, okay, do you believe? And this is all a conversation I'm having with myself. Do you believe that he is sitting there thinking, if I say these exact words in this exact order, with this exact expression, she's going to think she's not good enough? Like, really? And the absolute absurdity of that,
Yeah.
I just felt that anger just come from here, and it was gone.
Yeah.
It was absolutely gone. And when I tell you, in that second, I reached the state of from anger to complete neutrality.
Yeah.
That's why I have no recollection what the conversation was about, what he even said to me, because everything associated with that is gone.
Yeah.
And then of course, I was irritated because now I couldn't pick a fight. It was over. It was over. It's like, I can't fight with you because there's nothing to fight about.
And you know what? That space is kind of awkward to be in after, because it becomes it's a foreign space when you begin to practice this awareness or this emotional understanding of self, or self responsibility. It's a strange place to be with yourself and no
Yes.
emotional reactive state.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
a beautiful observation to have. That's incredible that you were able.
That really brought it home for me. That really taught me that, wow, it really isn't about what someone else is saying or doing. Now, there are legitimate examples and times when, yeah, it is about what someone's saying and doing, where we need to step in and we need to take action. But even then,
Yeah.
it's where is that action coming from? What is the intention and motivation behind that action? Is it coming from a hurt ego space? Or is it coming from your true self saying, I need to step in and I need to neutralize this or take control of this? So intention and things that, are very important. But yeah, when you start looking at yourself and you think, okay, it is about me, that was totally me.
Yeah.
I could have, if I didn't do that, I could have, like, we could have been in an argument and been upset with each other. And, the way it used to typically be of me, it could have been days before I really
Exactly.
felt like, okay, now I'm ready to let that go.
That's exactly it. Like, I mean, for some days, months, and for some, they're just stacking these little experiences on top of each other until they have a major fight. And
Yeah.
that's, the avoidance or the inability to see ourselves in the situation or the experience allows that stacking of smaller little fights to create one very large one. Absolutely.
Well, create one large one. And also, when you think about adding these little and stacking these little microaggressions on there like that, one after the other, you get to that point of forget loving the person.
Yeah.
You don't even like them.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
can just say hey to you, and that would be enough to trigger everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it has such far reaching consequences.
Absolutely. And this is like the power. This is like the power of everything that we're speaking of. This is how you're taking back your power. One of the things that my wife did, like, I mean, I met my wife 6 months after I got out of jail. Like, I had been like, I was certainly, I had a self-realization and an understanding of this new person I wanted to be in this moment. But I had 23 years of patterns and behaviors that were not beneficial for anybody, especially the 14 years of toxic relationships that I had put myself in because of the individual I was. But
Mhm.
she is the most patient woman. I am beyond grateful to have found the reflection of myself in this life. I mean, she is I'm so grateful for synchronicities in this life. But she would not ever throw an experience back in my face because I still had practices that weren't beneficial for me. I didn't mind blaming every now and then or pointing out her faults, and she was so calm and cool, and she would just ask me like, Justin, is this who you want to be? Is this who you are? You know, in these situations or in these areas of frustration, you know, or my inability to communicate. She would just ask me, is this who you are? Is this who you want to be in this life? You know, you take a look at yourself right now. And I was just like, she never blamed me. She never threw anything back in my face. She just asked me to look at myself and who I was in this moment. Regardless of if that information sat with me in that moment of frustration, it never left me because it left me with a question to reflect on myself. And hadn't have I done that, that was her opportunity to say, this guy needs time for me. I got to walk away from this guy, you know? He doesn't understand that the journey is within. Like, he doesn't know how to see himself in his situations. But because she saw progression after progression, and we openly communicated about it because, you know, she's just so amazing like that. And I think that everyone can have that ability to be that way. But I share that because, you know, sometimes we'll be doing inner work on ourselves and our partner will still be in this reactive state. And it's difficult for us to, you know, find peace within that environment. That's why I shared that method that she did with me because it worked so well. It allowed me to be accountable for who I was. And also it allowed her to see that if there was no progression, why was she wasting her time? You know, like what was she really investing in this human that wasn't willing to invest in themselves?
But she gave you such an incredible gift because she saw you for who you really were,
Yes.
not your past,
Yeah.
not everything that you had been and done.
Yeah.
She saw you for who you really were. And when she asked you, Justin, is this who you really want to be? She was giving you the opportunity to see yourself through her eyes.
Yeah.
Because if you saw yourself through her eyes, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't be that. What a
That's
gift.
it's so true. You're absolutely right. And her methods of emotional stability, like she has her own, I don't want anyone listening to this to think like, you know, she doesn't have her own inner work or practices that she
Mm-hmm,
does within herself because she absolutely does. But you're right. It was just an ability to see me through her eyes. And I think,
mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes when we're with our partners that we choose individuals and we do see them a way that they do not see ourselves. I think that that's a really important opportunity for you to see your role in a situation and be and see if giving energy to an individual who's not giving energy to themselves is something that's for you, because you know we had that period of reflection, and I think that that's the accountability. We've got to be accountable for our emotional peace and stability, and if we're not, it allows us to see, you know, how we're putting ourselves in the situation.
Well, she couldn't want, just to use that same example, and this applies to everything, but she couldn't want for you to see yourself in a better light. She, more than you wanted it for yourself.
Right. She
She
couldn't
just,
want for me what I couldn't want for myself.
exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it, which is that's a great way to put that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that relationships these days are certainly suffering from this inability to communicate with first ourselves and have this awareness surrounding ourselves and then with our partners. And a lot of what I do in my life is really connect with men. I connect with everyone over emotions because it's affecting everyone, but really giving men a space like you gave me, you know. And I have this space with women, with men, with everyone, but I can see the value in having a space like with you for men to open up about the things that they're carrying. And I would encourage, like, you know, everyone to come and experience what you're offering because it's a beautiful way to make peace with an understanding of love in this life.
Um, and just to that point, it's having to be first and foremost 100% honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to be honest with yourself, no matter how ugly you might think the thought is or the emotion is. Um, but you have to be able to do that. And only when you can do that, then you can take that step to be brave enough to say, okay, I trust this person enough to want to be open and honest with them.
And I think that, well, before that steps happens, we have to be honest with ourselves because, if
Hmm.
I look at
Yeah.
myself, like 4 years ago, I got out of jail, homeless, and I had made a decision when I left that jail cell, 23-year drug addict, and like I made a decision when I was in jail that that identity that I had created to protect myself from not having to feel uncomfortable feelings and face experiences and not know who I was but pretend to be somebody I wasn't was no longer going to be a function for me in this present moment. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done along your road because I was in this paradox. I was there. I was in the now, really, is what it was. I just looked at that 23 years and I was like, okay, I understand why that guy was created. I get it. No problem. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the education. I made so many poor decisions that were impacted my emotional well-being and many others' emotional well-being. But that's okay because today I'm going to learn from that. Because today I know that I don't have it all figured out and I'm okay with that. And for me, I surrendered my life to love in that jail cell, which allowed me to become a student of love. And when I began to become a student of love, that's when the awareness started to open up for me because I knew that my past no longer defined me, that every single day I was going to use every opportunity in life to get to know more of who Justin is and what he stands for. But I had three principles that were honesty, authenticity, and love. And I think when we can adopt those three principles in our life, you don't have to have anything figured out. You can have walked away from whatever difficulty life or whatever difficult experiences in life you were just facing, but you step into your honest, authentic self to become someone new by saying, hey, I'm ready to get help.
So here's the thing that I look at um, in your experience, right? There were things that you did in your past that you're not in any way, shape, or form proud of. You said, okay, that was me then. But when you make that choice to say, I'm going to leave that identity behind, right? Already there's that distinction. That's not who I am.
Right.
Those were choices I made, poor choices. Hurt myself, hurt a lot of people, poor choices. I'm leaving that identity behind and I'm going to adopt a new one, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't judge that old identity. You didn't judge yourself for that because the judgment would have kept you right back in that same place. You wouldn't have been able to get out of it. You didn't judge it. You accepted it. You also didn't say, well, fine, I'm going to leave that behind and just kind of move on. You're still going back and healing that old part of who you were. You're not trying to simply be someone without that because you know all of you're going back and finding all of the gifts that lay within that experience and using it to fuel you for who you are now versus just saying cut that off, that's not who I am, and
Right.
denying that part of who you used to be, that identity of who you used to be.
Absolutely. You're right. Absolutely. I had to accept it in the moment and I
Yes,
used it.
and not judge it. Yes.
Absolutely. There was no
Yeah.
judgment because I
Yes.
knew all of that was created out of fear because
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid of what other people would think of me. So judgment was created out of that. Absolutely. In when becoming a student of love, a couple of the rules that were shown to me was you're going to make a bunch of mistakes. So it's
Mm-hmm.
totally cool. Like just you're okay as long as you're leading from honesty and authenticity. You won't always get it right, but you're going to make mistakes and you'll learn from them quickly. And the other rule or the acceptance was the ability to not have to judge yourself because you were learning about who you were, and the mistakes would allow you to not judge yourself because we make mistakes in this life. So and the areas where I was avoiding from my past, because you're right, I couldn't let it go. I mean, it's a part of you. It helps shape who you are in the moment. But I needed to grow into that more. So everything that had happened within those difficult experiences, I had to explore, because if I didn't, I wouldn't understand why it happened for me. So I began
Yeah.
to go in there with tools of love, and my tools of love were compassion, forgiveness, communication, respect, understanding, but I had to learn how to use the tools. and I did that through conversation.
Hmm. No, I totally get it. And that is just, um, your story is so unique in that way because um, not a lot of people can walk away from that and turn things around in such a short period of time. You know,
Yeah,
that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. I don't often give it the credit that it likely deserves because I just feel like it was a gift, and then I know today like I'm just a messenger, and I meet other messengers like you, and I feel like we're all a messenger, but we're just not sure of what we're supposed to deliver. And I realize that that's our story. We're all a messenger of our story, because there is no manual for life, but I have learned that there is. There is a manual for life, and it's made up of all of our stories. So the
yeah.
sooner that we can become vulnerable within the experiences that we've had and share that education with others, the faster the manual will come together and we can live in love. And that's just what I've decided to do.
And making mistakes, every single one of us is going to do that 10 million times over. I think what's more important than worrying about making a mistake or getting things wrong is what is the intention or the motivation behind the action or the words. And if you're clear on your intent and you make a mistake, that's okay.
Yeah.
But the intent and the motivation was clear. Then you're willing to learn, then you can apologize for it, whatever. But if the intention and motivation is not correct, is not true, is not authentic and honest, that's when we run into trouble.
Yeah, but I even for myself, like, I had these patterns and behaviors from 23 years that I certainly had come into my a self-realization of myself, but I would say things to people. Something I would be having a conversation, I'd be learning about myself, whatever it may be, and then I would say something because I would move too quickly, and that's things I would do from my past. So I would say something and I'd be like, oh shit, like, like I that came out way wrong or whatever. I evaluated all of those opportunities because I was like, okay, wow, oh man, I said that wrong. There's nothing I can do. That person's walking away with that. I don't even know them. You know what I mean? Like, whoops, kind of thing. And I thought, okay, that's okay. Because that was just an opportunity for me to understand I need to slow down and I need to be very aware of the words that are coming out of my mouth. And I did that a few other times because I
Yeah.
was trying to integrate that behavior into an understanding. But a mistake is only a mistake unless we learn from it. So, and we can make all the excuses we want in the world as to why it took so long for us to learn something, but
Mm-hmm.
the lessons found within the opportunity of education, just within our experiences, like I literally use every human I meet as an experience to understand myself in a situation. And the more I'm aware of that, oh my gosh, like in the last every week I'm leveling up, and leveling up in terms of, like you put it, I'm not falling as far back. I'm landing on just the platform below me, which is really nice because that's the value of inner work.
Yes, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
Jeez,
awesome.
it was this. Oh my gosh, Anita, this was one of my favorite conversations. I hope you know that. This was just really great.
Thank you. Same here. Absolutely loved every moment of it, and just your graciousness, Justin. It's so welcoming and so inviting. It's like, okay, you just allow people to just ease into it. So I love that. Thank you.
I appreciate, but I mean you as well, and I really want to stress to anyone listening to this, like I'm gonna put all of Anita's contact information below. This session with Anita changed my life. It offered me such a space for clarity and for evolution within a very difficult experience within my life. So I am deeply grateful for you and opening up that space for me to be a part of this and to learn from it and to talk about it. And it makes me emotional right now because it was just like it had so much power, especially something surrounding my brother, which I guess I do push that away. I did, I pushed that away, but you really allowed me to open that, and just the freedom within the ability to heal that experience. Like you say, like I walk differently today, I'm just in another space, and I'm so grateful for you for facilitating that, and for doing what you're doing in this life, and for not choosing to do a 9 to 5, and be compartmentalized with the machine, which many of us made choices in life thinking that that was the best option. But what you're doing with your life now can help people see the true value of what lies within them. And I just appreciate you. I honor you for all of the decisions, and all of the work you've done on yourself to be a messenger for what you do as well. So please, anyone, reach out to Anita. Like, this is real.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that tremendously, and I feel that. I feel that that's coming from your heart, and I truly feel that. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll put all your links below, and I just thank you for your time. I thank you for your service, and reach out to this woman because she's gonna help you. Have a wonderful day.
Great job, Justin. Thank you.